everyone. Welcome to Designing Science, the IndieBio podcast. I'm Arvind Gupta, your host and the founder of IndieBio. I'm here to help share the secrets and tales from the frontiers of biotechnology. IndieBio enables the world's best scientists to build radically innovative companies. This podcast is for you. Hello, everyone. The man with me today needs no introduction. In the 90s, he was known as the Bard of Silicon Valley. He was on the cover of Wired magazine. And then he left Silicon Valley. He, in the meantime, wrote 7 New York Times bestsellers, won 9 national awards for various articles, and then wrote his last book 4 years ago, Top Dog. He then disappeared again from the public eye until last August when he showed up at IndieBio's doorstep. And now he's back. So I'm excited to have a conversation with the legendary Bronson. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. So you've been gone for the past 4 years. What have you been doing?
All right. Meet me halfway here.
Okay.
I don't want to rush the answer, right? I felt a calling. Okay. The calling feeling has been strong on or the instinct feeling has been guided me a lot in my life, right? When I came out of Stanford and I'd written 4 economics theses and I was banking and I was on Wall Street, there was no guide to tell me how you go from there to being a writer. Mm-hmm. I had to listen to these weird signals that I was picking up, right? When I left Silicon Valley in '99, I was picking up these signals that something was wrong here and the story was elsewhere. And 4 years ago, after writing Top Dog and having offers to write more books, I felt these signals again. And I didn't know how to speak it. I don't know how to say it. I knew I needed to study. I felt like the war was coming between people who like change and people who don't like change. And that this was going to happen all over the world, and that I was needed back to help explain the technological disruptions and the sociological disruptions that were going to be changing the world on people too fast for them to understand it, and too fast for them to accept it or see encouragement and optimism in it. Right? So as I looked at that and wanted to attack it, I couldn't just say, just start writing, right? I had to study. I had to study what were these forces of change and really come to understand them. Because I'd been studying for all of my books, I had shifted from writing about career and sense of purpose. All of a sudden I was writing about child development, and I was not an expert. I had to study really hard, right? So my best way to engineer this is I hooked up with an old Wired contributing editor, Josh McHugh, and he had a consulting firm, Attention Span Media, and I went to work as a futurist. And I was essentially being paid to do my research, which was cool, and worked with a lot of the world's leading brands across healthcare, across sports and fitness, and around food, all that converge on health, with sort of an outer circle in social inequality and in sustainability. And so we did the future of food, we did the future of medicine, we did the future of sports, many issues of the future of sports. And I studied what I came to make a list of the 150 most important changes affecting our society, right? And I studied them really hard. And I began to wait for my visions of how these were going to work out. Right? Now, think about that for a second. If in 150 changes happening upon the world, if this one is stronger than that one, or let's use my fingers and my rings, if this one is stronger than this one, you get to this future. If it's the other way around, this one's stronger than this one, because it's gold, not black plastic, we get to another future, right? And had to look at what was coming. And It's interesting to do this today. We're recording today. It's 5 days before the World Economic Forum meets in Switzerland.
That's right.
And just yesterday, to the listening audience, I am holding up the World Economic Forum's Global Risk Report 2019.
That's right. Just came out.
Right? Just came out yesterday. And I read it the second it came out. And it's really interesting, right? It's similar to what I could see about the problem of tracking 150 changes. Think of it this way. So this is sort of a complicated idea here, but reading this report, which is a very great attempt, and I know IndieBio is close to the World Economic Forum and has great relationships with the young leaders, and but there's some couple subtextual things that come out. It's a terrific report of all of the changes, but a couple subtextual things come out. One is that there's a lot of change coming.
Yes.
There's 20 major risks quickly arted on the opening page. 20. And then the next page, you see that we've had 20 significant risks for the last 20 years. And every year they're different. So a couple things come out of that. One is this sort of, well, we've always had important changes and risks, but we're still standing, we're still here.
Right.
So maybe that we have these 20 global risks isn't in fact a threat. We'll be still standing here 20 years from now, right? That's that subtextual thing. But the main problem that I see is diffusion. Diffusion. The subtext of the report is that we at the top need to solve things for the bottom. My work as a futurist and work with a lot of the leading brands around the country and the world tells me that ain't gonna work. Change isn't gonna happen at the top. It has to, the pressure has to come from the bottom. And when brands and companies see their market shares dwindling, and when they see that consumers are unhappy, and they're not buying the stuff that they're selling, they're not picking up the services, that's when they get a sense of urgency, right? You have to sort of point a gun at their wallet.
Right.
And I still believe that as we look at all of this world of the future and all of the thinkers and what can we do and what can we do, the part that's missing is I believe people are coming who will hit the right notes. And I've been thinking about what those notes they're going to hit. And they will become the leaders of the bottom-up pressure. And between bottom-up pressure and top-down thinking, we're going to get solutions. But there's a premise here which is in this sort of top-down approach. Now, I'm going to talk about diffusion for a second, right? So there's so many things we should care about, right? Make a list with me. CO2, Me Too, LGBT rights.
That's right.
Inequality, Black Lives Matter, equal pay, right? Coral reefs, the garbage patch, animal welfare, renewable energy, microplastics, sustainable wages. Like it just goes on and on.
Right.
And that is the very way that the bottom's energy dissipates.
Too many problems.
Too many problems. And who in the world says, if you have a problem, you have a company. If you have two problems, you're dead.
Yeah, someone.
Someone.
Someone we know.
You. And I showed up at IndieBio, and the other thing you say is, I invest in problems, not in solutions.
Correct.
I don't have a solution, Arvind.
Right.
I'm a storyteller. Nothing I say, the fundamental facts, I mean, I got them from somewhere. Someone did the research. I'm not claiming credit for that. I spin things, I shape things, I retell things, I highlight things, right? So I showed up at IndieBio and I came to IndieBio because I have these problems. But I don't want 150 problems, and I don't want 20 problems from the Global Risk Report. I think to not diffuse this human energy, we need to better prioritize and understand what are the most important problems. Channel that energy and spread it into the other problems. And I believe that a sort of a non-hierarchical process is only making essentially the bottom up, the consumer revolt, diffused, confusing to the top, and Because I've worked with them, and they're like, I really want to make this sustainable product, but I don't know if they'll buy it.
Right.
You know, we have this new healthcare model, but I'm not confident that consumers are going to enroll in our plan. And so at that intersection, we have to create more hierarchy, more clear thinking, and recognize these voices coming up from within.
And so you're talking about the top and the bottom. Let's define that a little bit more. And so classically, or recently at least, it's been common to call that the 1% and the 99%.
Yeah.
Do you think that's an accurate view of the world, or how do you think about the top and the bottom in your mind?
All right. I'm so glad you asked. All right. Because this is, of all of the things that I could study, where I could do my own creative work was with people.
Right.
You know, when I wrote What Should I Do With My Life, it was a call to action.
That's right.
For our generation to find a better way to make a difference in the world. And even trying, whether you succeed or not, you will find meaning and depth to your life that will be very rewarding.
Right.
And today, I see a similar kind of talent problem where I feel like the best minds of our generation are working at some of the big FANG companies basically selling ads.
Right.
And they are, I'm not going to have to tell them, I think they're going to wake up and say, wait a minute, I'm spending my life selling ads. I need to think about what I'm going to do. The 1% versus 99%, or what we used to use, upper class, middle class, lower class, right? Right now, in our economy, there's a conundrum. And I wanted to solve it. Okay. It's true that of the last 18 years, we have had job growth in 16 of those 18 years. Yet fewer people are working than in 2000. How is that possible? How is it possible?
People leaving the workforce.
60, yes. Okay, well, you're jumping. Yes. No. Okay, but it's also true. So I'm going to straight the conundrum a little bit more, right? It's true that we have 3% growth in consumer spending. Right. Though for a little trouble at the end of the year, we've had rising bull markets for 8 years. Yep. We are managing to shrug off Brexit and our trade wars with China.
That's right.
There's always a line at Blue Bottle. The economy
the ultimate barometer of the San Francisco economy at the very least.
But on one hand, you could say this economy is doing great. Yep. On the other hand, you could also say that we have 42% real unemployment. The number of people who work full-time in the private sector is 96 million. The number of people who have left the workforce is 95 million. We've had 9 million more people leave the workforce just in this decade alone. Wow. The median, half of America earns less than $31,000 a year. 70% of our country earns less than $50,000 and does not have more than $500 in savings.
These are shocking numbers.
So often people say, oh, well, it's a glass half full, glass half empty. That's not right. It's not just a matter of perception. There's a phenomenon going on which you could describe as the hollowing out of the economy, or what, with my work with Josh McHugh at Attention Span, we call the thrift class is emerging. Okay. And I think it's a really important phenomenon. There's some wrinkles in here I want to get into. But we look at society as essentially there is a 1%, then there's a next 19%. Okay. And then there's the thrift class, which is 70%. Okay. And there's the last 43 million Americans who are at food stamps. Okay. And we're headed towards this, in the next couple of years, to where 70% of our society is in this thrift class and has these consumer behaviors and way of living. And I want to kind of get into it.
Yeah. So tell us about the thrift class. It's fascinating.
So income. The difference between the 1% and the next 19 is important. We still have this upper class, they're the next 19. Okay. Their job income is going up 2.1% year on year. It's not going up very fast.
Okay.
Thrift class 1.3%,
Okay.
bottom 1.2%.
Okay.
Where they're making money and why they feel wealthy is they have financial assets. So their financial assets, for most of them, it's their house, is appreciating, and so they have a sense of wealth, and they're spending. So this spending is happening, massive spending in the top 1%, terrific spending in the next 19%, and then there's this cliff in spending. And what's going on is not a short-term phenomenon. This hollowing out of the economy and where the jobs are is a 40-year trend that's accelerating and very clearly going to be a 50-year trend. So in the 1980s, the economy was creating a lot of middle-paying jobs and a lot of high-paying jobs, and it wasn't creating low-paying jobs. It was creating good jobs, not bad jobs.
Right.
And that started to shift over the 80s, into the 90s, and through the 2000s, into the 2010s, where now job creation at the high end is only in the top 5% of income bracket. Even people in the next 19, even people between 80 and 95 percentile, the jobs there is not going up. They're going up at the very, very top. And in the middle, there's no jobs there. Even in the lower third, the top half of that lower third, the number of jobs are going down.
Okay.
The number of jobs that pay $11 an hour, $9 an hour, $14 an hour at the very bottom are skyrocketing.
Interesting. Is this? Is this part of the gig economy?
No. So
what's
yes,
driving these things?
just keep track of the gig economy, because when we talk about employment numbers, if you work one day as an Uber driver, you count as employed to the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So in 1940, we started recording employment.
Okay.
That was when we first started doing it. Unemployment was at 15%.
Okay.
We were coming out of the recession, headed into the wars. Unemployment was 15%. A smaller percent of men today are working than in 1940, when we had 15% unemployment.
Wow. So a bit able to work.
But choosing not to.
choose not to.
So why?
Yeah. And what are they doing?
Playing video games.
No. Come on.
Watching Netflix, watching YouTube.
Okay. How do they finance their watching of Netflix?
Okay.
$7
All
a
right.
month?
Yeah.
If they're not working.
This is the trick. It sounds really scary when I talk about what's happening to this hollowing out of the economy and wage inequality, right? And you sort of think this is looming and this is a dark side of our economy, and it's very easy to think, oh, we're in a bubble and we're ignoring these people and they're all angry.
Yes.
Yeah, not actually. Not actually. So this is the thing. They're leaving the workforce because what's the point of taking a job that only pays $9.25 an hour in the first place? Take grocery clerks. Grocery clerks, 2/3 of them quit their job every year. In San Francisco, our restaurants are having trouble finding labor because they're just going to work for Uber.
Absolutely.
It's like easier. And
Absolutely.
the thing about it is, they can control when and where they work. But they still count as employed. LTWs, the leftover, are people who've left the workforce.
Right.
They're not even.
They're just not
Not
they're
even
playing
driving for Uber.
They're playing video games.
Well, no, they're taking care of their families.
Okay.
They are living with their friends and being the person who can take care of things and manage stuff for lots of people.
Interesting. Okay.
Keep in mind that what's happening with automation is we know it displaced all the manufacturing jobs, and now it's beginning to displace the service jobs. Officially, we have 26 million people in the service economy. The job growth is in personal care and in healthcare.
Right.
But otherwise, if you're a security worker, there's robots for that are coming online now. We always talk about the driverless cars. As it moves in, if you're in janitorial services, there's robots that clean the outside of buildings, so we don't need. These things are all coming. And they're increasing. The trick is no one's losing their job. They just don't want the job anymore. It's not worth it. They could take a job. There's 5.1 million unfilled jobs in retail right now in the U.S. People don't want them.
Sure.
Because they're only offering this much money.
Sure.
And how people are getting by on $31,000 a year is what we really need to focus on.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
So first of all, they're buying less.
Okay. So that's
Just
cut
buying
expenses.
less.
Okay.
A lot of brands think Amazon has stole their market share. Some, yes, but really they're just not buying like they used to. They don't have the money to spend,
Right.
and they're not impressed with the products. People have to eat. So you see brands coming in like Aldi and Lidl from Germany, and they are offering Whole Foods produce at Walmart prices. And they're expanding. They'll quickly be the third and fourth largest grocery retailers in the U.S., up to 2,600 stores. And they use a lot of in-house private label brands
Right.
rather than buying from the other brands in order to lower prices, and spreading all across America. You look at Ryanair, which is doubling its fleet by 2024. You look
Right.
at Google Fi, phone without a phone company that's expanding rapidly. You see brands exploiting this. In 2018 was a crushing year for a lot of stocks at
Sure.
the end, right?
Absolutely.
Except for discount retailers, up 46% on the year.
Really?
Some people are getting what's happening to our economy. What's happening? What's the story about Apple right now with our iPhones?
Right.
That they raise the prices $300 and sales aren't there.
Right. Getting crushed.
They thought everybody has this money that they don't actually have.
Right. And they're hitting those upper limits. So we're really seeing then this true hollowing out where the population's trending towards the very lowest income bracket and the very highest income brackets.
Yeah.
And so consumer spending is changing accordingly.
Right, and it's impacting all sorts of brands. But what are people doing with their time? A lot of what we've done is create these enablers, right? What we always talk about how successful YouTube is, right?
Right.
We don't mention when we say that, because it's free.
Right.
We talk about how successful Instagram is. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, the kids are on Instagram. Because it's free.
It's free.
They're on Netflix all the time. Because it's $5 a head on a family account. All you can watch for $5.
Right.
Spotify, $4 a head on a family account. All the music all day long, $4 a month.
Right.
Compare that to your electricity bill at $80 a month. Water bills in California have doubled this decade, $80 a month, right? Price of gas. Price of gas is actually the big constraint on the thrift class and where they struggle. We as a society tend to sort of villainize these people. We tell them they're lazy. They're all living with their parents.
Right.
It's because they can't afford to live out,
Right.
right? So if you're unemployed, 67% of thrift class lives with their parents.
Okay. And commonly known, would you say most of the thrift class then is the millennial class or the millennials, or is this
The ones we should be paying attention to are the millennials and Gen Zs as coming into this lifestyle and
Gotcha.
understanding
Okay.
that their lives were unbundled, the job was unbundled, the family was unbundled,
That's right.
your city was unbundled.
Right.
And so they
Dating-
turned around,
dating
dating
is
was unbundled.
Yeah, that's right.
So they've turned around to the world and they have unbundled you. They have
Interesting.
unbundled your cable package. They have
Right.
unbundled your sports teams so they just root for
right.
the players. They have unbundled loyalty, right? And in so doing, they've found ways to spend less and less. The ultimate catch here is that their purchasing power has not gone down. They look at the what's gone up a ton is thrift store shopping, right?
Right.
So 21% of America goes to department stores, 10% goes to factory outlets, 17% shops at thrift stores.
Thrift store being like the dollar store?
No,
No.
reused goods.
Okay, like
Goodwill.
literally. Okay, Goodwill.
Salvation Army.
Wow, okay.
Resold used goods.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
It's a $7 billion economy in the U.S. right now.
Wow.
Just like Goodwills and Salvation Armies and those kind of stores.
Interesting.
And there is a rejection of overconsumption in the millennial and the Gen
That's
Z
right.
mindset, right? And it's like if you're really into those sneakers, you're a sneakerhead, awesome, go for it, great. Buy all you want. sell them on eBay, sell them on Poshmark. If you're not, don't waste your money.
Right.
Go to Ross twice a year.
Right.
Don't do that. That's fakey, right? And this is going to hit a lot of our corporations very, very hard, right? And I think the thing is that this generation, this thrift class, is not all angry. Some are angry. Most of them are pretty happy.
Right.
They're finding ways to stretch money. They can always sell some clothes, sell some goods to raise some money. There's 38 sharing economy platforms to just get money, borrow money, right?
Right.
There's 9 just to share a boat or rent a boat for a day. Right?
Okay.
Like
That's amazing.
The sharing economy and the investors in there are really anticipating this migration and this hollowing out of our economy, and they're seeing this behavior.
Right.
Maybe not quite completely understanding the big picture. So getting in here and really creating tools to allow people to actually live on $31,000 a year. And so most broadly, the way the world is converging is that the American middle class is going increasingly learning to live like the global middle class. Right? So when people in India and China come out of poverty and they join the world's middle class, our middle class is headed towards the same kind of lifestyle and behaviors as that global middle class.
Wow. Well, that global middle class, and it sounds like the American thrift class, doesn't have much of a safety net.
Yeah.
And so generally, those are healthcare shocks to a family, and that sounds like it could be quite devastating to 70% of America.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and 80% we count the food stamp 10% that you're talking about as well, that we haven't really spoken about. So, I mean, if we're talking about 80% of America that can't take a healthcare shock into their life, how does that get taken care of? Because it ends up getting passed to everyone through taxes, I would imagine.
Well,
through Medicare or something.
Not just passed on, because the individual suffers poor health.
Absolutely.
And much more difficultly than the rest of society absorbs those costs.
Very true.
But the economic burden of healthcare on our society and what we're getting for it, I know this is something you at IndieBio are really focused on and want to disrupt.
That's
and
right.
created a lot of technologies and platforms that could disrupt this.
That's right.
I would say, in fact, that where there's enormous opportunity is in microinsurance. And in the healthcare reform debates, and even when Obamacare was passed, and we were working on future of medicine, and we were studying healthcare systems, or diversity of healthcare systems around the world, the ways that they can provide healthcare in India for like 99 cents a month.
That's right. The Arvind Eye Hospital as well.
Yeah.
I mean, massive innovations coming out of Indian healthcare systems.
And so we could see a chance for this sort of reverse migration, reverse flow, rather than we have this trickle down process of we invent everything and we use it, and then a few years later people get the used goods in other countries. We have this chance to sort of actually bring healthcare systems from other countries here, and we have a huge thing. Like it's like 7 million Americans go to Mexico every year for healthcare.
Actually, I met a woman at the airport who went to Mexico in San Diego when I was just down there for a meeting, and she sat next to me on the plane. She said, "Oh yeah, I was just in Tijuana getting my teeth done."
Yeah. And one of the most legendary innovators of healthcare systems in India has set up a whole hospital system in Bermuda for everybody on the East Coast to fly over for the day, get your stuff done, fly back or stay a night or two, fly back. You know, like there are not just, and this is important,
That's interesting.
not just these are vectors by which this infects our system and begins to disrupt and change our system.
It's a really interesting point. I mean, we're watching pharma drug costs continue to rise in the past 5 years. In some cases, doubling within 5 years, and Martin Shkreli famously gouging the public. But that behavior isn't going away or gone.
Yeah.
And so, what you're describing is driving of the American public to lower cost healthcare systems around the world to find that same care. That's a problem, I would say.
And under our current legislation as well, you're not really allowed to offer microinsurance. You know, to be the bottom tier of insurance, there's a lot of requirements. And those all sound like great requirements. But the result is that we're not able, you could not sell the best microinsurance program out of South Africa or India today in the United States.
Right.
Right? It's important, we can't miss this part, but we've had enormous gains this decade, right? 97% of our society is systematically excluded from participating in those gains.
That's right.
Right? You have to be an accredited investor. Right? Only 3% of society has $1 million beyond their house in a bank account that they qualify as an accredited investor.
Right.
You cannot put money into Uber. You could not put money into Facebook. Right?
Yeah.
So all of the ways that we have systematically created a growth creation engine, which is fantastic.
Yep.
We have simultaneously created a legally enforced monopoly that millionaires have, by definition, literally millionaires have a legally enforced monopoly on getting those gains
especially,
from all of this stuff.
Yeah, especially as these companies stay private longer and longer and longer, that wealth creation isn't transferring to the public markets as early as before.
Right. And Reg CF has brought in some potential for crowd equity funding, and Reg A Plus has created some opportunities, but they're not really coming into the real system.
No, I remember when that was first coming out, and all the VCs, myself included, were wondering if this would disrupt everything, and it's pretty much been a whimper, and not a real force at all in the fundraising scene.
And of all spaces, biotech most of all.
That's right.
Because there isn't enough people to do diligence, and an ordinary investor cannot in any way off some website differentiate between. The irony is really strong here, right? A venture investor who's been doing IT investing for 20 years, who doesn't know squat about the difference between mitochondria and mRNA, is allowed to invest in biotechnology startups. But a grad student at one of the world's best labs, a postdoc who's been earning $57,000 average salary a year, who probably invented the very thing, is systematically forbidden from investing.
That's a really good point.
Right?
That's a really good point.
So we have a massive knowledge disequilibrium, right? And where the people who know what to invest in are not the people who are necessarily legally allowed to invest. So it creates a very, very small population of people who both could do due diligence, who could lead investments, who could write checks, and know what they're talking about, and know what they're thinking about.
Right. And these people are in the thrift class.
No. Well, some of them are.
The postdocs that you're talking about, the 50,000.
But they are.
Yeah, they're in the thrift class.
Technically, a postdoc is average salary is $57,000, so they're just above.
Okay.
But the way this is working, they're creeping right into there.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. So we talked a bunch about the thrift class, and then that gets us into the 19%. I mean, so what is the 19% doing? How are they affecting the overall economy and the population that
they're going away.
They're going away. Interesting. Okay. They're either going to the 70% or the 1%, or
well, just that literally, if you look at where the job creation
or
is,
they're moving, going to Canada.
Well, no, I mean, look, they're still going to be there, but like the job growth between, as I said kind of earlier, between 80 percentile and 95th percentile is not there.
I see. Okay.
The job growth is not there. The job growth is higher than that.
Right.
So some of them will go join the top 5%.
Right.
Right. And some will slip a little bit.
Right.
Those people who do have the financial assets, as long as markets are going up, continue to feel a sense of wealth and continue to spend, and they're probably really powering the economy. Right? They're really powering the economy right now. And that creates a risk to the economy, because as that sort of splits, if you're a bank and you just want money to go through your bank, the money's still going through your bank.
Right.
But if you sell shoes, fewer and fewer people are buying new shoes.
Right. Interesting. And what you're talking about really is, again, as long as things are going up and to the right, everyone feels good.
Yeah.
But the second things start going poorly for their assets, that's going to cause a pretty bad cascade.
You know, we talked about video games, right? Said it a couple times. I think said it with a little bit of not derision, but disapproval or mockingness, right? That's not what I meant. That's not what I'm seeing. You know, the battle royale games, where people Fortnite, where people can get on with their friends, are increasingly, these are important words, increasingly where young people feel trusted, valued by their friends, regarded for their merit, and a sense of both belonging, meaning, and purpose.
That's interesting.
And the issue with the thrift class, really, that goes on is, I wrote What Should I Do with My Life? It was a search for purpose through your work and through your spirit.
Right.
And what I see today is a world where people very few people are going to be able to get meaning from their work. They will still find meaning, right? And so where are they going to find it? And we so easily deride the younger generation for living with their parents and lazy. We deride them for playing video games. No, this is where their needs are being met.
Interesting. This is a profound thought. Very profound in this. I mean, I grew up with the idea that you find meaning in your work, right? Like those two things are completely coupled.
Yeah.
And never stopped to think, what happens if you can't find work or don't want to work?
Yeah.
You will find meaning in something. Where you find it, right? It's an interesting.
Right.
It's a conversation, that's bundled with the universal income conversation. As we start talking about automation taking jobs, and this has been a bit of that conversation. But yeah, I think that's a really, you're right. It's video games and things like that are not just escapes.
Right.
For many
Especially
people.
when you're online with your friends.
Right.
Not with strangers.
Huh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you might be competing as strangers, but you're with your friends. And this young generation looked at Facebook, and we all say, oh, Facebook has turned out to be half the time it's used for manipulation and stuff.
Sure.
Well, before we all figured that out, the younger generation looked at it and saw an even far more critical flaw.
Right.
It was boring. They looked at it and said, this looks like an old newspaper full of ads of people's weird recipes, photos of used pets, pictures of little kids. They're like, this is boring.
Right.
Me sending something over and you all look at it and you sending something over, that does not count as community to the younger generation. Younger community's on group FaceTime. They're on house party. They want to be on with each other right now.
Right.
Not I fire stuff at the many and I read the many's posts back at me. And this sense of community, how they're drawing it. Self-determinism is a critical fundamental need. So if people don't have this through their work, how are people going to find and manifest self-determinism? Taking care of their body. Visualizing that on Instagram is a big way that people are finding self-determinism.
Some would say that's shallow, right?
To be healthy?
Fair, to share it.
Again,
in many ways, right?
good point, though.
To find meaning.
Some would share it.
It's an interesting, I find this fascinating.
I think you're right, you're right. This is a thing where we see, everyone's posting photos of beauty shots themselves on Instagram, before and after.
Right.
That's sort of shallow. And we're missing the point. These people are proud of taking control of their lives.
Right. That's a very good point.
And in this misperception, that the thrift class is somehow unhappy and sad and all that stuff, if they get a healthcare bill, sure. But most of them are poor and don't have a whole lot of money, buy a slice of pizza, go to the mall, try on some clothes, take a photo of themselves, put it on Instagram, don't buy anything, walk out, hang out with their friends. Hang out with your friends is the number one thing they like to do.
Yeah. Well,
and it's actually a good life for them.
Absolutely. I will be the first to say I absolutely do not think that you need to have a 7-figure bank account to be happy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've lived in enough places in the world around abject poverty where people, I lived in Shanghai for 2 years, and this family that guarded the hutong that we lived in. We lived in a very traditional Chinese house with other Chinese families because we wanted that experience. But this family lived in a little tiny the guard booth, basically, that was not much bigger than the distance between you and I and the width of this table. And the interesting thing was, like the street was their living room.
Yeah.
And they were a very, very happy family. They didn't have very much.
Yeah.
But in India I've seen the same things, and in America. So I agree with you. It's interesting to see it in the American public, and then what we're seeing, what you're talking about, is redefining what we consider, or what in the 50s, 60s, and 70s considered happiness, and redefining it to be something maybe more organic.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I want to tell you maybe the beginning of this 4-year journey. The way you introduced me was dead on, which is I sort of disappeared from the public eye, right? So, so I go back 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. I gave a speech at a high school outside of Boston. It's known as Nobles, and it's in the woods and New England. Beautiful, incredible school, terrific school. And I would do this thing where I'd come in, and I didn't want to just like give an address to the faculty or the students. It's like, if I'm going to come to your community, I want to talk to your parents. I want to talk to your kids. I want to talk to the faculty. I want to talk to your mental health community that you have on campus. All right, so, and I had written Nurture Shock, and that was this big bestseller around child development, and it changed a lot of things in our society about how this generation of kids is being raised. And you keep writing for Newsweek, and you keep writing for Time, and you keep writing for the New York Times, and more ideas stack up, and suddenly it's sort of like that list of disruptions. It's 150, or it's 20, or it's all these things we care about. It starts to become pollution.
Oh, interesting.
And I was there in my hotel room, and I was looking at all I had done around child development in those 5 years, and what were the best ones to pick out, and I just couldn't do it. All right? I felt important to prioritize. And the reason I would be flown around the country and the world to talk to schools was about stress. And it didn't matter. I had written the New York Times story on how stress in kids in academic settings is mediated by genotype, and that had been a really important story and thought. But that didn't answer what they wanted to know. So that night, I just took the microphone with all these 400 parents at this school, and I stopped my speech in the middle of the speech, and I said, you want to know why your kids are stressed. You don't understand why they're stressed. Because everybody at their school, their mental health community, and their counselors all tell them not to worry. That it's going to be fine. Doesn't matter if you get into Dartmouth or have to go to somewhere else, you know. And your parents tell you not to be stressed.
Right.
They say it's going to be fine. It doesn't matter, no pressure. So where's all the pressure coming from?
Right.
And I'm like, what do you think, your kids are stupid? They grow up, they get how the world works.
Right.
You get out of elementary school, and some kids go this way, and some kids go this way. These kids make it, and these kids are cut. It's like there's a game of musical chairs. And every 4 years, the music stops. And some kids go this way, and some kids go that way. We play the music again, kids. Get up and dance. Music stops 4 years later.
Right.
You go this way or that way. And you think the kids don't see that? You think they don't notice that? You don't think they're getting this idea that the world wants some of us and not the rest of us? That the world has a place for some of us and not the rest of us? And you want to know why they're stressed, and you can't see what we're doing?
Right.
And here's the thing. They're stressed because you're stressed, I said. You, the parents, are stressed. Because you see the game of musical chairs too.
Right.
And you are afraid that when the music stops, your kid will not have a chair. And you read the New York Times, you read David Brooks, you hear how our kids are going to have to compete with 1 billion kids from China
Right.
and 1 billion kids from India, and they've all been studying math much harder than your kid. And you read this stuff and you're scared and you walk in and be like, it's going to be fine, kid.
Yeah.
So the way we solve this is not what you talk to your kids. The way we solve this is how you think about your child's life. You have to get rid of the stress.
Right.
You need to think differently. And let me tell you, there is a lot of change coming. There is a lot of challenges. And we are not going to solve them. Our kids are going to solve them.
That's right.
And here's the thing. When it comes to solving them, we don't just need the kids who were last in the chairs at the end of the game, music playing, right? We don't just need some of them. We need all the smart ones we've got.
Right.
And all of their smart friends. And they get to grow up in a world where they get to solve some of the most interesting, fascinating challenges we've ever seen. And they don't compete with people from India and China. They're going to sit desk to desk with people.
They'll collaborate with them.
They get to work together with people from all over the world on the most interesting problems, and we need every one of you.
Yeah.
And if you characterize, if you understand, this is an exciting time for our kids rather than a scary time, then you can begin to learn how to talk to your kid about the world and what's coming. And I said this, and parents were in tears, and I didn't really know what I'd said, but I knew I had cut through some of my own pollution, my own idea abundance, and began to understand that there will be people who understand this. There will be people who lead generations of these kids. And they understand that they will make this call, which is, we don't just need some of you, we need all of you. And that was when I stopped, I dropped my pen, I began to study. And 4 years later, showed up on your doorstep.
That's right. And so, what's next? We have a few minutes left. So if you dare to reveal, what are you thinking about working on, and where do you want to go in the next 4 years?
You mentioned universal basic income.
Yes.
Right. So a couple summers ago, I had a bunch of teenagers, Gen Z, researchers, investigating different things. And I would let them do their research and do before testing and sort of point of view after testing, and they would do research and learn. And one day I said, we're going to do the future of work, future of labor. And one of the kids, the smartest kid, began to do the research, and in 10 minutes, he got up and he left, and he ran away.
Wait, what?
And he was texting, no way am I ever getting in a driverless Uber. No way. He's
Interesting.
like, I don't want to do this. This is not the world I want to have.
Interesting.
I am fighting back.
Okay.
I'm going to devote my life to fighting back against what's happening. And I continue to hear in this younger generation this sort of separation. Some people sort of go totally good with it, but I see universal basic income, and I love the idea. Andrew Yang is running for president. He's a real dark horse candidate. He's a big proponent of this. A lot of people, I'm not endorsing him, a lot of people that I love in the race, but I've talked to billionaires about this idea, and not just Silicon Valley billionaires, but Midwestern billionaires, right? Old money billionaires. And some of them like the idea. I just don't see exactly how it happens. And it's definitely a top-down solution, right, to help everybody. And I'm worried about top-down solutions and their feasibility. And I also thought there was a hypocrisy. I have here, for the listening audience, I'm holding up the cover of Wired magazine, summer of 1999.
This is the cover.
And that's my face on the cover, Generation Equity. And Silicon Valley was built not on handing out income, but on handing out equity. And
Right.
if you had a share, you would work your butt off for the outcome of your company.
Absolutely.
And I thought it was just hypocritical that Silicon Valley would now be picking up the universal basic income idea and spreading. I think it's a great idea, but I'm not sure it's feasible. And I believe that universal basic equity is more feasible.
Very interesting.
Universal basic equity is not a specific proposal. It is an idea around creating new economic systems. I studied economic systems at Stanford as an economist. It is a new economic system where consumers participate in the financial gain.
Right.
We often have ideas where labor participates in the financial gain, but it's where consumers can participate. And I believe we're at a time where a lot of our economy is ripe for disruption, and that if people understood this, if they could create sort of the economic systems to create essentially Me Too companies, similar companies, duplicates, with a different fundamental economic system underneath it, that made people feel like they were not being cut when the music stopped.
Interesting. So the more I buy on Amazon, the more I own of Amazon, something like that.
Something like that.
Something like that. Very interesting.
REI is built this way.
That's true. That's a great example.
And
great example.
I'm not. It's more of a emotional and fundamental need than a real economic benefit.
Right.
But companies go around all the time saying our customers are co-owners of our brand. No, they're not. They don't own your company. You own your company.
That's right.
Stop lying.
Yeah.
You want to make them owners? Don't give them loyalty points.
Right.
Make them owners.
Right. Give them equity.
And I believe we're at a time with blockchain where we could actually engineer different economic systems that created a way that we participate mutually, and that if we are to avoid some of our fundamental challenges, I don't have all the details. I'm asking for help. If you want to help, call and email IndieBio. I will be there, and I'm excited to work on this problem.
Yeah.
I don't have the solution.
It's interesting, especially when you think about healthcare as well, and how bloated healthcare has become relative to the value it provides.
Yeah.
Life expectancy, although is staying the same right now. Overall, people are feeling healthier over time, but it's costing so much more.
Yeah.
And so the question is, how do we change those systems to make it much more efficient and make it so the thrift class can feel confident in their health futures, not just their financial futures.
Right.
Given a shock to their economics.
Yeah, because you just wrote this great thing, which is about that despite the incredible and amazing and staggering advancements in the ability to treat sick patients, the fundamental drivers of what's causing us to get sick we're not making much dent in that.
Very little. Modern medicine has not really created any cures. It's made a lot of treatments. Symptoms are better, but we haven't cured much since vaccines or smallpox has been eradicated, antibacterials and antibiotics. That's the last time we've really created cures. I mean, gene therapies are poised to radically change that and radically change our entire healthcare system, but that's still a technological innovation away around gene delivery. But I think some of the economic systems that you're talking about and how we empower and enfranchise people to be part of their own solutions can give deep meaning, again, when maybe work isn't giving that meaning to people.
Right.
What they do with their time and with their money can. It's a phenomenal sort of insight. And
that summer with this kid walked out on me, right? And it was the smartest, the most thoughtful one, and I was like, whoa. And I spent that summer almost in deep meditation on this challenge. Yeah. And then one day in August, I woke up and just the words, universal basic equity came to me. Yeah. I didn't know what they meant. I still don't have thought out. But I began to think about this as that the way the world would play itself out, whether we get really close to the point of mass extinction and then we solve it,
Right.
or we manage to get there on our own in a more rational way earlier, that we would realize that fundamental economic systems are now capable, that were never capable before. And the capacity of microtransactions and even sort of quantum ownership, where you may or may not own at any one time, like that these create possibilities for us to reimagine how economies work, and that they could help prevent my biggest worry, which is massive social strife.
Right.
That would
Right.
derail technological change. Because I do believe in the technological change, but I do understand that it scares people. And I believe that we're at risk of where technological change could be undermined by social strife.
And that's a good point. And social strife is generally caused by extreme inequality.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot to work on here.
Yeah.
Well, it was great to get to know you.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you showed up at our doorstep in August. And thank you so much for your thoughts and insights and sharing your wisdom over the years with us and our audience.
Awesome. This is fantastic. I appreciate the platform to come bring you my problems and my thoughts.
Wonderful.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.